What I did not realize at the time was that I was really laying a foundation for binge eating because I was operating in such an extreme way of complete restriction, but it was still very much a struggle where I had been in patterns of like extreme fasting against extreme kind of patterns of binge eating and develop a healthy relationship with food. And that has been one of the most evident results, I guess, in my own life and my own brain is just the way that I interact with food in a much healthier way.
All right, welcome to the Fit Vegan Podcast. I'm your show host, Maxime Sigouin, and I'm the founder and CEO of Fit Vegan Coaching, a company that is on a mission to help 10,000 people get lean, thrive, and reduce their risk of chronic illnesses by 2033 and 1 million by 2050. I believe that having a fit, healthy body and mind is the foundation to living an incredible life, and this is what the show will give you if you choose to listen and implement. Enjoy the episode and have a great day. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fit Vegan Podcast. Today, I am joined by a Fit Vegan superstar, Brandan Kessler. Brandan, how you doing, man?
I'm great. It's good to be here with you.
Good, man. I feel like a hockey announcer every time I introduce someone into the show.
Pump up.
Yeah. Brandan, so you've been in the program with us. You got some great results, and you do some interesting work in the nutritional field. And so wanted to have you on the podcast to talk about what your journey's been like, kind of what brought you here, some of your lessons, things that were valuable for you that I hope would also be valuable for the listeners as well. So let's just get started from the beginning. Like, what got you to become plant-based?
Yeah. And thanks again for having me. I'm really excited to be here and kind of share my story. And yeah, hopefully it's helpful to other people. But yeah, so I've been plant-based now for approximately 6 years. And, so about 6 years ago, I was working in the field of nutrition, but not in nutrition science yet. I was more like in kind of a general management position. So I worked for a popular wellness brand. And it was just a routine kind of healthcare screening, kind of a corporate healthcare screening. And at this point in my life, I'm in my, I think I'm in my early to mid 30s. I think I'm pretty healthy. I've always eaten healthy. I've always exercised. So here's this routine corporate screening, and I get my blood results back, and they were really bad. And so that was a pretty big kind of shock to the, kind of shock to the system to see all of these kind of red flags on this kind of routine, blood, kind of blood work and healthcare screening. And so I had some pretty severe cholesterol issues and also some borderline blood sugar issues. So anyways, one of the maybe advantages that I had is I did kind of have some research skills at that point. And so I literally just started plugging away, in a kind of a panicked fashion, and really just started researching what creates, high cholesterol and these other things. And so kind of really within, honestly, probably 24 hours of kind of getting that health scare, had basically determined through some, a fair amount of resources that a plant-based diet would be very interesting to try and potentially very successful in kind of, battling some of those things. And so, yeah, I mean, that's probably a bit of a long kind of answer to that. But I basically went from a health scare to being plant-based in 24 hours. So maybe the fastest conversion to becoming vegan. But I was literally plant-based the next day, and I have been probably 95 to 99% plant-based ever since then. That's really how it started for me. And then I think I was so impressed with the results of being plant-based, again, mainly from like a disease prevention standpoint. And so what I was able to do in terms of, I lowered my cholesterol by over 100 points in a single year, and was able to go from a very unhealthy range to a healthy range. And so I then really saw the evidence in my own life of what a plant-based diet could do. So I became really a big believer from there. So I'll pause there, but that's really where it started for me.
Yeah. Did you, when you were going to do blood work, did you think that there'd be anything wrong? Did you be like, no, I'm healthy. Like I'm I'm living a healthy life. And then you got the blood work and like, man, that's a shocker. I didn't really expect that. Or were you expecting it?
It was an absolute shock. I think we're always maybe a bit naive about our own health. I mean, here I was at this point in my life. I had a degree in exercise science. I was always someone that was physically active. I enjoyed eating healthy. I enjoyed exercising. Life was happening. I was probably not going to a doctor very regularly at that point, and so yeah, I thought everything would be just fine. So I was genuinely. I mean, I had honestly kind of blown off that corporate health screening,
Yeah.
and so I was very very surprised when I got those results, and I think probably as a response to how surprised I was the dramatic response that I gave to it, and just
Yeah.
in kind of how serious I very quickly kind of determined how to kind of take control of my health, and figuring out that a plant-based diet could be a really exceptional tool to kind of regain control of some of those specific things that I was struggling with.
Yeah. So let's make paint a bigger picture of like before you got into the program. So
Yeah,
most people, when they hear that have higher cholesterol, they'll be like, oh, algae, let's take, right? They might just like kind of stop at that. So is it
sure.
because you're that type of person that you're like, oh, something's wrong, I need to fix it right away? Or
Yeah.
is it because there's a potentially a history for yourself or for your family members that have dealt with certain chronic illnesses that
Mhm.
kind of prompted you to take that action? Or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, I think it's this really interesting combination of things. So, one of the factors is I've always been really interested in human nutrition. So, I've always had a really huge interest in nutrition. My bachelor's degree was in exercise science. So, although I didn't directly study nutrition until later in life, I knew that connection between the food we eat and our overall health. So, that connection was kind of in the back of my mind, although I might have said I was eating a pretty healthy diet. Um, so that was there, and then I think when I was able to go in and kind of start researching what creates high cholesterol, I think I was interested in two things. One, the amount of saturated fats in animal products and dairy and other things that was potentially creating this issue for me. And then simultaneously, some of the benefits of plant based foods where you're replacing those things with often, other high protein things like beans or lentils or tofu or tempeh, but you're also getting all that dietary fiber in there, which is kind of the other side of high cholesterol, which also kind of results in lower cholesterol. So I think I was attracted to nutrition anyways. I understood the
Yeah.
connection between nutrition and health, and then I was fascinated by how much evidence there was of both eliminating animal products and simultaneously replacing those with more nutrient dense, health promoting food. So I think all those things came together, probably a little quick and maybe a little bit more dramatic than others. But for me, it was like a 24-hour journey. And I was like, boom, this is it. And the next day I was vegan. And, I remember people in the office being like, wait, what? Like in a single day, you completely, went vegan. And of course it's been a longer journey, but yeah, it really was kind of that fast of a decision for me to adopt a plant-based diet. And yeah, it's been 6 years now. And I've been, again, predominantly, I mean, 95% or greater plant-based ever since then.
Yeah, I want to talk about your transition, the transition period, because
Yeah.
you gave me some great notes before we started the podcast, so I had a chance to review those. So you used to do modeling as well, just like I did, right? You have your bachelor's
Yes.
in exercise physiology, so you're very much, and I say this just more of as a slang, but you were more like a bro, kind of like I was growing
Oh yeah,
up, right? Yeah, like you're in the
for
gym,
sure.
you're eating steak, you're eating chicken, you're lifting. There's like
For
that
sure.
whole
Yeah.
culture around it,
Yeah.
and like you probably yeah, you probably were like again the era of like remember Ziz? Remember who
Yes.
Ziz was? Right?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So there was like that big era of Jeff Side, Ziz, and kind of all those people. All my audience that's above kind of 50 kind of lost me here. But yeah, so there's
Sure.
this era of bodybuilders and fitness people online that everyone was
Sure.
kind of looking to. It was very much bro science. So it was chicken, rice, and broccoli and hot sauce and mustard, and that's kind of what we were living on. So
Big part of my
going from
diet
the
back in the day.
yeah, exactly. So going from this strong cultural attachment to this specific way of eating.
Yeah,
What made it that you were like just so willing to let go of that, like I say, like old identity to just shift
sure,
to eating plant-based? Or was there like doors or like seeds being planted before you even got there that made it
sure.
so easy for you to make that change?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I've always been very curious. And so I've always really enjoyed research. And that's a big reason I'm in the field of research now. But I've always enjoyed seeking out kind of evidence based answers to things. So for me, I think that is kind of always the driving force in kind of making decisions about things. And so for me, when I encountered this problem with cholesterol and blood sugar and other things, I knew something was going wrong with what I was doing. So there was a willingness to change there because there was kind of an admission on my part that something wasn't going the way that I envisioned it going. So I knew I
Yeah.
needed to change something. And so that was definitely a driving factor. And then the approach to looking at research and kind of seeing what the evidence was. I didn't know that much about plant-based diets when I started researching them. I lived in South Florida at the time, so I wouldn't say it was uncommon. I knew people that were vegan. We had vegan restaurants in South Florida, so it wasn't completely foreign to me. Um, but I think I was surprised when I started to look at the research at maybe how much evidence there was at the success of a plant-based diet in really kind of promoting overall health. So it didn't seem, I guess, when I looked at the research, very controversial. It seemed like
Yeah.
something that was actually fairly well established from a scientific perspective. And so, yeah, for me, it really just made a lot of sense. And for that reason, I became convinced and pretty quickly went into, kind of full plant-based diet mode. I will say that adopting a plant based diet, the willingness was there, the knowledge of how to do it and how to do it well, that took a lot more time in order to kind of figure out how to correctly eat a plant based diet. Because I do think there's a big difference between eating a healthful plant based diet and simply avoiding animal products. So it
For
did take
sure.
some time to adopt a healthful plant based diet, and certainly some refined cooking skills and other things that kind of went along with that.
Yeah, and we'll dive into that when we talk about kind of like your journey. So basically, I want to get to the place of where you were at before you started the program and kind of
Yeah.
like how that transition went. But before we get there, we have a very similar past, right? We were both
Yes.
into modeling. We both struggle with kind of binge eating issues that kind of
Yes.
potentially stemmed out of that industry. So I'd love
Yes.
to talk about that before we get to where you were at before
Sure.
you started the program, because I think it'll paint a picture as to like what got you there and what are the things that needed to change. But
Sure.
when did that come about for you, and when did you realize that like, hey, this is an issue that I need to address?
Yeah. And, as maybe a quick aside, I mean, that is one of the key things that got me into the Fit Vegan program was when I heard your story and just so deeply resonated with your story. There were so many things that were like looking in a mirror for me.
Yeah.
Just with our backgrounds being so similar, that it was just like this is where I belong. This is the program that I need to be in. So that was really an awesome kind of homecoming for me. But yeah, so yeah, to your point, we have some similar things in our past, and so yeah, so maybe kind of unpacking some of the things around binge eating. So I modeled throughout high school, and I certainly didn't think this at the time, but as an older, more mature, I just turned 40 a few weeks ago. Now that I look back, I realize probably some of the roots of kind of binge eating. So I had a experience, and this is going to be very vulnerable and transparent, but I had an experience in modeling where I'd actually made it, I think, fairly far from a modeling perspective. And so later in high school, I had the opportunity to audition, I guess, per se, for a very elite modeling group. And it would have really changed my course. It really would have probably taken me away from college and put me into life in a big city as a full-time, kind of model, working with a lot of well-known sports brands and other things as kind of a sports and fitness model. So it was one of those very vulnerable moments where I had to go in front of this group of people, and you are shirtless. You are literally, they have all your pictures, and you are being judged and graded in a very vulnerable kind of way.
Yeah,
Um,
you're just in a lineup in your underwear with a bunch of other men, and then
exactly.
they're just
Yeah,
looking at you. I get
exactly.
it.
And it is so vulnerable. And I'm a little more naive at this point, so perhaps a bit more willing to to go into that, to go through with that kind of audition. But basically, I was doing everything I knew how to do to have a perfect body at that time. That was my focus. I Everything I knew about nutrition, which wasn't that much, but everything I knew about fitness, I was giving it 100%. I was under 10% body fat. I was, very, very lean. I had a six pack. And so here you are, kind of in all your vulnerability. And I remember them being very, very interested in kind of taking me to that next level. But what they said was, Brendan, we really want you in this group. You are so close, but you just have to go a little bit further, just a little bit further, and you're there. Keep going. And the thing for me that I look back on is I didn't have the knowledge to go any further. I
Hmm.
was throwing every single thing I had at it. And that at that point, with the knowledge I had, was really the best I could do. And so looking back, that moment for me was very pivotal in that it created a fear of food for the first time. Up until that point, food had been fun. Food had been, I was fine with food. It created an unhealthy relationship for me with food where all of a sudden I was fearful of what I was eating and the way that my body, or body fat specifically, was responding to that. So I look
Yeah.
back now and I think that was really the root cause of what created the potential for binge eating disorder. And then the other thing that I look back on is the way that I managed fitness in college. So we talked earlier, but I was exercise science. It was bro science. It was, you thought you were busy in college, but I was training twice a day. Sometimes you had all this time on your hands. And so the way that I managed my diet in college was that I ate extremely strict for 6 days, and one day was anything goes. And I managed through college pretty well that way. Of course, I was training so much you could kind of get away with that. What I did not realize at the time was that I was really laying a foundation for binge eating, because I was operating in such an extreme way of complete restriction for 6 days, and then anything goes for one day, eating thousands of calories, really kind of opening up your brain and your body for this binge eating disorder. So um, I don't think I realized I had a problem probably until probably 15 years after that. But
Yeah.
then I realized that I had developed this pattern of restriction, binge. And so, even at the point where I was kind of entering this program, and I still struggle, but it was still very much a struggle where I had been in patterns of like extreme fasting against
Yeah.
extreme kind of patterns of binge eating. And so that's been an amazing piece of the program for me, is really having um, you and Coach Sarah that have understood that and helped, not only just from like a macro perspective and, helping me gain better fitness, but also really kind of coming alongside me and helping me develop a healthy relationship with food. And that has been one of the most evident results, I guess, in my own life and my own brain, is just the way that I interact with food in a much, much healthier way, avoiding really a lot of those extremes. Um, Something I missed that is maybe somewhat interesting is so when I was studying nutrition science, so when I went back to kind of graduate school, I had the opportunity to do some electives in eating disorders. And so I thought it was interesting. I kind of ran at those. And at the time, it was really about like, oh, it's really interesting. I really, I'd like to study obesity and eating disorders. And so as I was studying eating disorders, it probably wasn't until a few years later that I even realized that my own interest in studying eating disorders was probably deeply rooted in my own knowledge that I had an issue. And it was probably a few years after that that I finally had the willingness to kind of look just at a textbook and say, what are the classical symptoms of binge eating disorder? Maybe, maybe I have one out of the seven, or, two out of the seven. And I just remember going through that list, and it was just a perfect check, 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 check. Every symptom, every classic symptom I was really struggling with. And so at that point, I really knew I had an issue, but the
Mhm.
identification of it was really the number one thing that led to really kind of a lot of freedom from that. Was just identifying that I had a problem, owning that problem, and then seeking to gain a much healthier relationship with food, kind of reestablishing that healthy relationship. And that's been a journey. That was not instant.
Yeah.
That did not take a day. That's taken a few, probably 2 years, and it's still a struggle, but it's something I can say that I'm have progressed significantly towards a much healthier relationship. And a lot of that's thanks to the Fit Vegan program.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it does take time, man. To me, it took me like 6 or 7 years to recover from it after. And I just wanted to say that when you're talking about like going to castings and you're literally in your underwear and a
Yeah,
lineup and they're just like I feel like I don't know if that's what they are like committing to saying to every single person, but it's always like you just need
sure.
to be a little bit smaller, right?
Yeah,
You just need to be a little bit leaner, and then you lose like 10 pounds, and they're like,
sure.
it's a little bit smaller, right?
Yeah,
And you just keep getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier until you look like a 12-year-old boy, even though you're
sure,
not. And then they're like, your shoulders are still a little bit too big.
sure.
Yeah, grown up with a lot of frustration from the industry, especially
Yeah,
I say this respectfully, but it's all overweight guys that are telling you to get skinnier when you go to those
yeah,
castings.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And it can really damage people's relationship with food.
for sure.
They can become extraordinarily fearful and develop very restrictive eating patterns, and it's a very dangerous game. And not
Especially at
not
that
to
age.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was 16. I was
Yeah,
I was
dude,
a, I was a 16-year-old.
they're
So
basically
it's
telling you you're not enough in a certain
exactly,
way. That's how it's perceived, right? And so if you start to
yeah,
attach like not eating food to the idea of like I might be enough if I don't eat as much,
sure.
that's a recipe for bad relationship with food.
Absolutely. I mean, I had someone I knew that ended up joining that group, and I remember he was a year ahead of me in school, and so he graduated and moved to New York and did that full time. And I remember asking him what he ate one time, so I was curious, and I was at kind of the end of my rope, the end of my knowledge, and I think he literally ate chicken and broccoli, and he just said, like, that is all I consume ever.
Yeah.
And so he had developed an extraordinarily unhealthy relationship with food, and went on, unfortunately, later to struggle with anorexia and other things. And so very, very, very common. And not to mention, it kind of, I think it's healthy to strive for a healthful body, and I think it's a good thing to want a healthy body and to exercise and take care of what we have. At the same time, it frustrates me that they put that out there for people to see.
Yeah.
Here is someone that is extraordinarily restricted in what they're consuming, and we paint that on the cover of a magazine for young girls and boys as the picture of health. And I think there's a very serious societal danger with doing that as well.
Absolutely, man. When I was in Milan, it was again. I didn't do that. I just chose to just eat rice and run. But
Sure.
yeah, it was cigarettes and Diet Coke is what a lot
Yeah.
of the guys would do. That because Diet Coke just with the fizzy just kind of makes you feel full. Cigarette
Sure.
cuts your
Sweet.
appetite, and it
Sure.
was the era for me where girls were soaking cotton balls in orange juice and eating
Yeah.
it to make it
Wow.
themselves feels full. Yeah, it was crazy. It was a
Wow.
and like every year in high fashion, like the looks kind of change a little bit. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like
Sure.
bearded guys with tattoos. Sometimes you have to look like
Sure.
a 12-year-old boy, even though you're like 20.
Sure.
Yeah. So when I was there was the era of like of skinniness. You had to just be
Yeah.
as skinny as possible. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it is crazy. Like you said, those are the pictures that you see in magazines, that you see on TV. But for a fact, I'm just going to 99% of those people are struggling, have a bad relationship with food, have a bad
Yeah.
relationship with body image, don't feel great all the time.
Sure.
You want someone that feels great, man, just add a bit more fat on them. They'll feel
Sure.
phenomenal. It makes the
Sure.
world of a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
so interesting. It's yeah, it's interesting and sad to hear about those extremes that we go through, in that industry to, yeah, to put on almost an artificial look that then
Yeah.
ends up setting so much precedence and kind of expectations for the world that views that's actually viewing that as kind of the standard. And then what happens to the younger people that don't know better, that are looking at that saying, you know that's what I need to look like in order to be loved, accepted, and all those things. So it's really, yeah, I feel bad for those people, and then
Yeah.
also kind of what it does to us as a society.
Yeah. And just one last thing to add on that. Um, they're all under like 21 for the
Yeah,
most part. Like when I was in Italy, most of the girls that
yeah,
look older because of makeup that women want to look like, they're like 16 years old.
sure,
Right. And so that's why they're that skinny. You can't
sure,
be at one point, hips and boobs come in, and then, you can't work in the industry anymore at that point. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I feel like we can record a podcast alone on the modeling industry, but dude, let's go to the place of like, where were you at before you joined the program? Because I know you
Mhm.
mentioned in your notes that you had done a bunch of different programs before.
Yeah,
So I'm wondering what
yeah,
made you kind of move forward with this one, and what
sure.
made it so that you weren't burnt from previous experiences of like, this is going to be the same as everything else.
Yeah. Well, I think the one, we're talking very openly about societal pressures and other things. So maybe I'll mention just kind of one other thing, um, that's kind of part of that backstory. But so, and we'll get to some of kind of what I do now and some education things. But so now I'm a nutrition scientist, and one of the things I think that's interesting is society puts a little bit of kind of expectation that, well, you're in the field of nutrition, therefore you know everything about nutrition. You know everything about having a perfect body, and all these kind of expectations, and that's really not true. I think there's appropriate expectations that nutritionists should take care of themselves, of course, and eat healthy foods. But I felt a lot of pressure to do everything myself because I was in the field of nutrition and to know everything. Whereas in reality, I'm nichely focused on kind of one or two very very specific areas within the field of nutrition. I definitely don't know everything about nutrition. I know very little about body recomposition compared to you or Sarah or kind of other people. So one of the things that helped me start programs in general is just kind of saying there is nothing wrong with asking for help.
Yeah.
There, I have to get rid of this expectation that I have to intrinsically know everything and do everything myself, and was really willing to ask for help. That has been a freeing experience for me and just an awesome thing. Whereas first, like, I was scared to ask for help, and now like I can't stop asking for help because
Yeah.
I love the experience and expertise that other people bring to the table. And now it's like this amazing benefit of having all of this expertise that can really help you kind of push you along on the journey. So now I'm working with a physical therapist, working through some back issues I had. It's an amazing addition that's helped me through a lot of those things. So adding these experts to your program, to be to ultimately kind of better myself and push me along on my journey. So anyways, that's a little aside about kind of the background. But yeah, so I started looking for help and kind of looking for a program. I did 4 or 5 different programs before coming to Fit Vegan, and I had very limited success with all those programs. And really the reason was that I think a lot of those programs had kind of a defined structured mold that they tried
Mm.
to kind of put people into. And so when I joined those programs, and you know me, so you know this very well, but it's very hard to put me in a mold because my life is so chaotic. So
A lot of
it
travel.
became a lot of travel. So it became really, really challenging where these programs were kind of designed for people that were home based, had access to the same gym every day, to the same kitchen or a meal program. And so one of the things that was challenging were the programs I was using generally were not plant based. So sometimes there was not a mutual respect there, and they didn't understand, kind of how to design a plant-based diet to hit certain macros. So that was one challenge. Another challenge was with a lot of the meal programs that I tried that were plant-based, but they did not have the right macro balance for me specifically, or they attempted to hit those macros with foods that I didn't care for. And by that, I mean, we'll say less nutrient dense plant-based offerings. So we'll call this like all the fake meats and things like that. So, they would load you up with artificial, plant-based meats. There might be a place for those, but I was interested in the most nutrient dense plant-based whole foods. So that
Yep.
was another challenge for me why those programs, really, really didn't work. And then I travel like a crazy person. So I am traveling 38 to 40 weeks per year. And that makes consistency very, very, very hard. So I'll pause there, and we can talk about, maybe, kind of what, how I found the Fit Vegan program. But those are some of the reasons why I just didn't fit into the mold of other programs very well because of that travel and plant-based. I just, couldn't find the right fit. And so had a little bit of success here or there, but it was very intermittent, the kind of success that I experienced with those programs.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. Like, there's a lot of, and I know a lot of them because I've been in this industry for a while, but a lot of cookie
Sure.
cutter type of coaching
Yeah,
and that don't meet people where they're at. And like, yeah, most people, like, let's say some people stay at home all the time and do nothing else, but the majority of
sure.
people have other things going on where it makes sticking to a certain mold really hard. Like, unless you're in prison, that's like
Sure.
the perfect scenario, right? You're just training and eating and you do your thing. But most people have life and stressors and travels and family events and social events and date nights and things that you
Yeah,
need to be able to navigate. So how
exactly.
was that for you when you originally came in? Because I know, like, you had a little story when you came in. Within your first 2 weeks, I think you were traveling already.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, joining the Fit Vegan program has been amazing. I mean, I mean, again, it feels like coming home for me, or, kind of finding this, this community of like-minded people. It's just been incredible. But yeah, so when I joined, so I had found via social media, I had learned about you. I had listened to your story. I started listening to your podcast. I immediately resonated with you personally and kind of your story. We had so many commonalities, similarities. We knew a lot of the same people. We had a lot of similar interests. And so that was a really, really good fit. And I just loved your approach. Maybe two things I think really stuck out. One is you were very focused on not just a vegan diet, but actually a healthful, whole food, plant based, nutrient dense diet. That was very, very important to me. You were very interested in macro balance. That was also very important to me because I had found some programs that were fully plant based, but not very macro balanced. And then there was something you said one time. I don't remember if it was on a podcast or maybe just as kind of part of some of the coaching things that you had put out there. But one thing you said, and I may misquote it, but you had kind of said something about people being in the program and you want people to run towards you, not away from you. And I love
Yeah.
that. And I really resonated with that because that was something that I've always kind of sought to do is let's actually run towards the problem and address it and move through it rather than just run away from it. And so many other programs have just kind of said, you're not really a good fit. You're doing this, you're doing that. And so I loved your approach to that. So I joined the Fit Vegan program, had a great kind of interview with Ivy, and then had ended up joining Coach Sarah's team. And I remember when I first started the program, Coach Sarah sent me a note and was really excited, and she sent me the date I was going to start. Looked at my calendar and I was like, uh-oh. Well, this is going to be interesting because, Coach Sarah has me starting, and like the next day, I think I was leaving for like a 2 week trip to Belgium, England, and Scotland. And so I got on the phone with Coach Sarah and was just like, hey, this is kind of what's going on. What do you think? I'm getting ready to do this big trip. And I love Sarah's response because Coach Sarah said, is that normal for you? Because, if it had been like, I was going on a 1 week vacation and that was never going to happen again, we might have taken a different approach. But I said, yeah, this is completely normal. Like, this is my life. Like, I travel 40 weeks per year all over the US, all over the world. I'm always away. And she didn't blink. She just said, Brendan, if this is your life, then this is what we have to work through together. This is the challenge, and we're going to hit it head first. And I was so pumped up by kind of Sarah's eagerness to join, because I had lived life so alone, where I just always felt isolated, always felt alone. And so to have someone come alongside you and say, we're in this together. And then, of course, to have the wider Fit Vegan community that is also on this journey with you, it just instantaneously became like this awesome family. So that was really how I got started. It was a brutal couple of weeks to get started because I was traveling all over the world. And so Sarah and I kind of very quickly put some plans together to do some basic planning. Did a little bit more planning than I usually do about hitting certain macros while I travel. And Sarah really encouraged me not to stress about it. That was also a unique approach. I'm someone who tends to kind of overthink things, and I can get very, very rigorous about things. I got, and that goes back to that binge eating, and also kind of that perfectionist mentality, that all or nothing. And so Sarah really helped me separate myself from that all or nothing mentality and just say, let's take it easy. Let's do the best we can, but let's not stress about it. I also love your approach of when things go wrong, let's get right back out there and win the next meal. That's been a really important kind of mantra for me. So we started the Fit Vegan program with a huge challenge, and I'll never forget, I, made pretty significant progress in those first 2 weeks, seeing a little reduction of weight, a little reduction in body fat. And that's not easy to do with, 8 flights and 3 countries and eating other people's food. And so that was a huge win. And I knew I had the right team at that point to keep tackling these challenges with.
Yeah, man, you're the perfect definition of like, there's no waiting for the perfect moment, because if there was, you'd never have started. You would have waited for, those 12 weeks that you're just at home and not traveling, which are spread throughout the year.
Exactly. And that's been, for me, this unbelievable, refreshing part of the Fit Vegan program is you and Coach Sarah's willingness to meet people where they are, not to have this. There are some very strong foundations, of course, in the right healthful diet, the right macro balance. Those things are staples of the program, but meeting people where they are and working through those challenges that are unique to them. I mean, that really has been the huge win for me in the program.
Yeah, because the idea of perfection is what screws most people up, right?
Sure.
That all or nothing mentality, perfectionism, like, we attract who we are. So I'm very much like that. I've done a lot of work to not be like that and to be able to kind of go with the flow in certain instances. But I feel like that's, like you mentioned earlier, that's something that's been helpful for people that are struggling with binge eating or that's struggling with emotional eating or stress eating. It's like, man, if you feel that it's going to be perfect and that you have to be on track all the time and then you're not, it can lead to like days or weeks of going completely off track, right? Versus if you eat extra large vegan pizza with a pint of ice cream, we'll just go like, hey, Brendan, hope it was good, man. Just eat your lunch, just eat your dinner after.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because I was so fixated on the all or nothing mentality that, I mean, this is so silly to kind of think back on for me, but it was something that I really struggled with. If I was aiming, if I was trying to hit my macros or trying to hit my calories or whatever that number I was kind of aiming for, let's say that I went over my calories by 50 calories, and I'm eating, 2,400 calories a day. So this is not significant. But let's say that I went over by 50 calories. my all or nothing mentality would just say, you blew it. You blew it. At this point, you might as well eat another 2,000 calories because the whole day is a wash. And so this
Yeah.
all or nothing mentality that I had would just say, this day is a failure. And that would lead to binging. So
Yeah.
one of the things that became very healthy for me is just understanding that we have something we're aiming for, but it is not the all or nothing perfection, mentality. It's just, if I go a little bit over, that's okay. And the other things that I would do are I would frequently miss workouts when I traveled all the time. This is before I joined the program, but I would miss 4 workouts because I was traveling so much, and then I would come home and just say, "Man, I was training for a half marathon. I missed 4 of my runs. I guess I'm running 36 miles today." And
Yeah.
and then I would break a foot or have all these injuries. So Coach Sarah and the program have just been incredible at helping me reset into this healthy mindset. I told Coach Sarah, and I'll say it here too, is I have one goal for this year, and that goal is consistency.
Yeah.
I haven't signed up for any of my usual, I'm going to run a 100-mile ultra marathon or any of those things. I'd love to get back to that place, but my focus is just winning the day, winning the meal, getting the workout done, and becoming incredibly consistent. And that consistency for me is helping my body, helping my body composition, but it is repairing my mental health and my mental relationship with food. And that
Yeah.
consistency has gone above and beyond what I imagined would do, just in terms of the physical, Brendan, but also in terms of my relationship with food and restoring this, very, very healthy balance and relationship with food.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm really trying to make this the last program that people have to do. And, we could have gone in and been like, hey, Brandan, you have to do 100% of all your workouts. We expect perfection from you. We're going to do this really
Yeah,
strict dieting plan. We're going to go really severe in a calorie deficit and do all these things. And you
sure,
would have lost weight faster and it's been great. But I know
sure,
for a fact that once you would have been out the program, man, you put all the weight back on and probably some more of it. It
exactly,
didn't solve the issue to just make you go numb for 12 weeks and just like starve you and make you do a bunch of exercise. And if
exactly.
we address this underlying issue of relationship with food, and you get to a place where like you love food, you know how to manage it, you know how to make the right decisions in all circumstances, then you're set for a lifetime because you've dealt with the underlying issue, right? And I feel like that's what most people don't think of when they want to do another fat loss program. They're like, no,
Sure.
no, like I'm ready to like shut off everything from my life for an extended period of time just so I can do this thing.
Yeah.
But then it's like, man, how long do you want to be this lean? Like, do you want to be this lean for like 4 months or like, the next 50 years of your life? And so I'm happy that
Exactly.
you're on board with the process that we're doing. Because at the end of the day, man, I just want you to have the body that you want, to have the health that you want, but to actually be able to keep it without having to like fall back to these old behaviors. And, I'll just talk about the kind of the binge eating, and if you go over by 50 calories, I think is a perfect example. Did you
Sure.
see my reel I posted with Will Ferrell and Talladega Night?
No, I didn't.
Oh man, but did you see Talladega Night with
Oh
Will
yeah.
Ferrell?
Oh yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
so when he gets into the car crash and he thinks he's on fire and he's running around his underwear on the
Yeah.
racetrack. Okay, and then he's at the
Great
hospital and he
movie.
thinks that his legs are paralyzed.
Yes.
He's like, man, my legs are paralyzed. He's like, no, you're fine. He's like, if my legs weren't paralyzed, then I wouldn't feel this. And he grabs a fork and stabs himself in the leg, right? And then he just
Yeah.
starts screaming. He's like, oh shit. He's like, yeah, I told you you're not paralyzed. But the funny part, and it's what self-sabotage looks like, you go over 50 calories, right?
Hmm.
How do you solve him stabbing himself in the leg? You just remove the fork. But what they do in the movie, his buddy grabs a huge jackknife and puts it in to try to pry out the fork, and then his other friend puts in another knife to try to remove the knife and the fork. They just keep adding knives to the wound. That's what
Sure.
self-sabotage looks like, right? You just gotta like, hey, pull out the fork, like, hey, I went 50 calories over. Cool. That's it, right? There's no
Sure.
need to kind of like double the amount of food intake at the end of the day. So that's my
Yeah.
little image for you to have in your head every time you go over
And
50 calories.
and that image is exactly right. And it's it really is also like that silly to kind of look back on that mentality. Yet I struggle with it for so many years because, yeah, there was just this all or nothing mentality where it was like it's either perfect or it's a failure, and
Yeah.
that is really a very unhealthy approach. And so now, just aiming for consistency every single day, getting close to my macros and things, but relaxing and actually enjoying what I'm eating and learning to eat healthful food. And so it's just been such kind of a beautiful transition to this more healthy state. But it's also I love kind of the permanent nature of it, where
Yeah.
a lot of the things I've done in the past have been I'm an extreme person. So it's been, I'm going to start running, which means I'm doing an ultra marathon. I'm going to start dieting, which means I'm doing a water fast or doing these really extreme things. And so Coach Sarah is just, the perfect kind of coach for me, where she knows how to come alongside me. But like a good coach, she also knows how to push me along in my journey and kind of in my thinking. So it's just been such a fun kind of building a relationship with you and her and the overall team, and just slowly separating from that unhealthy relationship and getting into a really good pattern. And of course, the longer you do it, and the other thing that's so important about consistency is you start to change your brain, you start to change your gut microbiome. And so, now eating those healthier foods is more and more satisfying. I crave more and more of those things. The cravings
Yeah.
for the old things have really started to go away. And so, your body starts to fully kind of embrace and enjoy that consistency as well. So there's so many things that have been a benefit to the program, and I've seen the benefit of kind of doing it slowly in a way that's going to become a permanent lifestyle for me, and not
Yeah.
just this temporary restriction. And then as soon as this is over, I'm going right back to the old way of life. And this, which I see so many people fall into, but instead, it's not a diet. It is this
Yeah.
overall healthy dietary pattern that you are building, aiming for something that I can sustain for the rest of my life. And that's been a beautiful, beautiful thing about the program.
Yeah. And that makes me really happy to hear that your mindset is shifting to that, right? Because what's consistency? It's 51% over 49%. That's
Sure,
technically consistency, right?
sure,
And when you start off, it may feel like it's slow, but when you start to do the inner work as to like addressing with stress eating and binge eating and all these other things, eventually it'll become, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, 90-10. Right. And
yeah,
then it'll get exponential. And so I'm excited for you to be doing that underlying work that'll help
yeah,
to kind of increase the amount of consistency to the
sure.
place where it's just who you are and it's not an effort anymore.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, I think that's an amazing thing about the program. It's been really fun having a community too, and just joining
Yeah.
this fit vegan community where, so I live in Cleveland, Ohio now. I'm the only vegan person in my family, and to my knowledge, I'm the only like vegan person in my like immediate community, or like friend and social circle. It's a little different in
Yeah.
Florida where we had more of that, but that's kind of difficult where you're going through life as kind of like the only plant-based eater. And so all of a sudden having this like-minded community of people that are also going through these challenges and feeling like you have that community to lean into, that has also been just a tremendous victory. And I think the other thing that I've enjoyed so much about the program is I had every intention of jumping fully in headfirst to the Fit Vegan program and just crushing the results and just going after it. When I joined the program, Coach Sarah was amazing in helping me gently realize that I had some parts of my foundation that were a bit cracked. It's kind of maybe borrowing some language from David Goggins. Always talks about his cracked foundation, but there were things in my foundation that were also cracked, that weren't quite ready to layer upon and build upon and achieve those results in a permanent way. And so, Coach Sarah and I have had to really work on that healthy relationship with food, eating with mindfulness. So there are some foundational things that I really needed to address where I feel like now I'm at the place where those things have become stable enough and healthful enough where I'm really starting to see some exciting results because that foundation has been invested in and built where it can now, really kind of hold for the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, like what has been the most helpful for you so far at this point in terms of tools that have been provided? And then
Yeah.
I'm curious, like the two biggest lessons that you've learned so far that would be helpful to someone listening that is potentially just starting on their journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe I'll start with kind of the two biggest lessons first. Um, I think consistency is just like the number one lesson. Um, Being consistent with the program is, I think, the most important thing. We're aiming for results that are long term. We're aiming for results that are permanent, but breaking the temporary perfection mindset. It's not going to be perfect. To you know,
Yeah.
you said when we started the podcast. I mean, everyone has date nights. Everyone has things that come in their way. For me, it's nonstop business travel. There are challenges on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. There are hurdles that come in, and so relaxing that perfectionism mentality and having the long game in mind and aiming for consistency. That I think has probably been the most important overarching lesson that I've kind of taken away from the program. The other thing, and this one may be a little bit more specific to me as someone who really struggled with binge eating, but when I started the program, Coach Sarah had said, "Hey, I want you to focus on mindful eating." And if I'm honest, I don't know if I fully knew what that meant.
Yeah.
But as I really got into the program and I really started to struggle at times, having this history with binge eating and other things, I really became aware of what mindful eating is and is not, and started to be able to identify when I was not eating mindfully and when my brain was essentially shut off and I was just
Yeah.
in like binge mode or just, and so Coach Sarah really helped me kind of think through that. And although I honestly didn't fully acknowledge and recognize what she was advising me to do at the very beginning of the program, it took me about 10 weeks probably before I really understood what she meant by mindful eating. And so embracing that has been really key. And I think I probably told her a week or two in that I was doing it. And I think I thought I was, but I really didn't even at that point know what mindful eating was. It's
Yeah.
taken me several months where I really understand mindful eating now. And that has been something that has been maybe a bit more personal to me, but that has been an immense lesson for me and also something tremendously healing for someone that struggled with binge eating disorder. So I think those are
Yeah.
probably kind of the two big lessons. Under that, like some of the key things that I implemented from the program, maybe a little bit more tactically. Um, Joining the
So just say
program.
before we
Oh, yeah,
jump on
yeah,
the
go ahead.
tactical stuff, I
Yeah,
just want to say like when mindful eating, like Sarah planted the seed, right? And so
yeah,
from a conceptual standpoint, from a knowledge based standpoint, we're like, oh, I I can understand it, but
yeah.
until you like really experience it and feel it in your body, you don't
Yes,
really know it. And then once you
exactly.
do experience it, you know how to replicate that sensation and that
Yeah.
sensation of presence every single time you eat. So a lot of people know a lot of things, but it's a different thing for your body to know it versus your mind to know it. So I'm happy that you understood it from a body standpoint.
Yeah, and to be able to recognize it is so powerful. If you are someone that struggled with mindless eating or binge eating, these other things, having the capability to recognize it is really important in identifying the issue and then leading you kind of towards a path of resolution. So that's been a really important personal lesson for me.
Yeah.
On the tactical side, I mean, there were a lot of things. They might seem little, but I think for me, they were really big shifts. So one of the big things for me was macro balance. Um, when I joined the Fit Vegan program, I was eating a vegan plant-based diet, but it was not macro balanced. So
Yeah.
I would even say I was eating fairly nutrient dense foods, but I really wasn't eating a macro balanced diet. So that's been another thing that's really helped me from like a binge eating perspective is having a lot greater satiety and
Yeah.
understanding, because back then it was kind of the mentality of just like eat the minimal amount and eat healthy foods, and then you're starving, and then of course you're tempted to binge, and these other things happen. So um helping, the Fit Vegan program really helped me establish a caloric goal and also a healthy macro balance that has helped keep me full. I mean, when I first started to eat the amount of food, I was like, guys, this is a lot of food. Like, there's a lot of food to eat. Um,
Yeah.
but you're eating all of this, healthful food. So, that was extremely helpful to me, drove a lot of satiety. I was not eating nearly enough protein when I joined the program. So I think that's probably a common mistake for a lot of people that adopt a
Yeah.
plant-based diet. And so not maybe understanding how to incorporate, protein sources, after being in the program for 4 or 5 months now, it's just like second nature to me. So I just, kind of know intuitively the right amount of beans and tofu and, tempeh to kind of add to things. And, that's been great. So that's been a big thing. We talked about mindful eating already. The other thing is something that I was very focused on in my exercise was cardio.
Yeah.
So when I joined the program, I was doing a lot of cardio. I had just was recovering from broken feet from training for an ultra marathon, and so I was doing a lot of cardio but very little resistance training. I was struggling with a back injury, so re kind of orienting myself to resistance training was also a really big shift. I still do a fair amount of cardio, but I'm incorporating with that 4 resistance training sessions every single week. I'm also doing physical therapy now for my lower back, and so that has been a huge shift. And when those things combined, macro balance, adding a lot more plant protein and resistance training. Man, I put on a lot of muscle when I joined the program. There's always a theory that vegans can't put on muscle. That was definitely not my experience. I found it extraordinarily easy with the right macro balance and resistance training to build significant amounts of muscle very quickly. So the muscle building piece also came in and kind of building that more metabolically active tissue that can really help burn fat. So I think those were probably two kind of tactical changes. The other changes really happened around kind of the way that I approach business travel. So we talked a little bit about that's a massive part of my life. It's 40 weeks a year that I travel, at least currently. And so Coach Sarah and I have really worked together to de-stress that, but also just to do a little bit of planning. And so now, when I leave for a business trip, I have a pretty good idea about where I'm going to get my protein from on that trip. Um, I have done some planning. I have a suitcase that has some high protein staples that are going to make that trip successful. I have learned there are certain things that I always carry. I'm never fully dependent on the airport I'm in to, feed me with something healthy.
Yeah. It's not a
They
good
might
idea
have
because they don't
something.
have a lot.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have a lot. So, I'm now incorporating certain level of planning in there. I'm carrying those high protein staples with me. I go to the level now where I make a lot of decisions about where I stay based on, access to a grocery store or access to a great gym. And so it's just incorporating a little bit of training, a little bit of planning where Coach Sarah and I have gotten it to the point now where I could maintain my weight on business trips. Now I'm
Yeah.
able to make a little bit of progress on business trips. And I want to get to the point where I'm making a lot of progress despite having to travel. And so it's just making those incremental, small, sustainable changes every time I can and making them permanent and then consistently following those through to be the best that I can.
Yeah, it was ultimately you were starting to develop your own systems for your
Exactly.
specific life, right? That work for you. Yeah, because I, we have a lot of people that travel and they're like, man, like there's no gym when I travel. I'm stuck in a hotel, and I'm like, every
Yeah.
time I travel somewhere, I find a gym and I pay for their drop in and I just go
Yeah.
and do a workout. I'm like, how is that not an option for the majority of people? Right. And
Yeah.
even hotels, so depending on which one you go to, some of them are
Sure.
pretty terrible, but some of them have decent weights and machines and cardio equipments. And
Yeah.
I feel like there's always a way to make it happen.
Yes.
Even if you have to wake up early before you start your day to do
Yeah.
your workouts, even if you have to do a little bit of planning for your nutrition ahead of time.
Sure.
Have you ever had your food shipped to an Airbnb or hotel before you flew somewhere yet? That's a game changer.
I should do that. I have not done that, but I will say when I do my international trips now that I pack an extra suitcase, and that
Yeah.
suitcase is filled with all of my staples. And so I've got instant lentils, I've got roasted edamame, I've got protein powder, oatmeal, and then I mean, you and I have talked about this. You can always get carbs, and you can always get fat. It's
Always.
really protein that is really going to be the challenge for you or for whomever is traveling. So that's really what I focus on, is really kind of planning out my protein. Um, one nice advantage that I do have is that I travel to the same places over and over again. So
Yeah.
you also, I try to make it fun and get familiar with the places. I go out to international restaurants that are more familiar with making tofu. And so I love going to
Yeah.
Thai restaurants that have a lot of vegetables and brown rice and tofu, and I can eat healthier things. And then I spend a lot of time at the grocery store. And then I think the other thing too is I am aware and willing to be countercultural when I travel. When
Yeah.
you travel, it's like, hey, you're a frequent guest at our hotel. Here's a cookie.
Yeah.
You're a frequent traveler on this flight. Here's a glass of champagne. There's always something. And if you're going, once a year on vacation, that may be one thing. But when it's every day or every week of your life, that is a lot of extra calories and other things. So you also have to be willing to live in kind of a countercultural way and know that this world that we live in is not designed to make you healthy, and that you're going to
Yeah.
have to make decisions that are kind of against the grain, to do that. And I think one other thing too is that I've changed my expectations. So I think being very, very flexible about what breakfast looks like or what lunch looks like. Sometimes for me, I'm doing my PhD in Scotland right now, and lunch is really challenging while I'm there. So sometimes I will have these huge breakfasts that include instant lentils and things that you might not associate with breakfast. That's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay. And so, I have oatmeal and lentils and all of these maybe unusual things on the surface, but it makes the situation I'm in work. And
Yeah.
so being very, very flexible. And same thing, I think with the gym as well, is lowering those expectations. Sometimes in the UK, the gym situation can be a little bit challenging. So, if I have in mind that I have to have like the perfect upper body workout, I might get in there and they might not have the right equipment. But if I have in my mind, I am going to go into that gym and have the best workout regardless of what they have, that changes everything. And then, I'm going to design a workout with what they have, and I'm going to hit my workout for the day. And so that's been a game changer too, is changing my expectations to having a
Yeah.
great workout, not to being so targeted and specific with I've got to have a 45-pound kettlebell or I'm not going to get a workout today. Is being flexible and saying I'm going to have a great workout. If the only thing I have is a running shoes and pavement, I'm going to have an amazing workout today. And that's been a game changer for me as well.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I think that's the number one secret to people having a successful transformation
Mm,
is management of expectations. When
sure.
we found that throughout the years, and almost 4 years now in existence for Fit Vegan Coaching,
Yeah, that's awesome.
and yeah, it's crazy that we're at 4 years. That's like 750 plus people now, which
It's
is
amazing.
yeah, it's insane. It's beautiful. But
It
it's
is.
we found that if we don't manage people's expectation when they come in, there is a higher rate of people that fall off track
Sure.
because right there's this expectation that like for some reason we think everything is going to go smoothly and perfectly once we start a fat loss journey, right? Like
Yeah,
there will be no obstacles in the way. I will get all my workout in. Nutrition will be perfect because I said it will be perfect.
sure.
But then there's the reality of life and stressors and travels and kind of things happening. So
Yeah,
if you are able to manage your expectation from the start, man, you'll have the most beautiful journey. You'll actually enjoy yourself. You actually learn something and you'll actually make lasting changes. It's
yeah,
just when you're like, you know what, I want to do this thing as fast, as rapid as possible. And if it has to be intense, then it will be intense. You'll never learn anything. The weight will come back on. You'll just end up in the same position and honestly, potentially worse because your relationship with food and exercise and your body is going to be even worse at the end of
right.
having rushed everything. And so I'm
Absolutely.
happy that you adopted that mindset from the beginning. So there's people listening that are in the program. There's people listening that are considering being on a program or not even, they're just on their own journey. Like what are
Sure.
words of wisdom that you can share with those people from someone that is currently in the process and that from what I'm understanding is enjoying it and actually learning a lot?
Oh yeah, I've enjoyed every minute of the program. I'm looking forward to being in the program for a long time, just because I enjoy the community, the camaraderie, the coaching. I've enjoyed really every element of it. I mean, I think for people that are interested in joining the Fit Vegan program, it's understanding that the program is designed to be, to your words or to use your words, the last program that you'll ever need. Um,
Yeah.
I think that is a complete shift from our extreme diet culture that we have in North America, where people diet and have this extreme mentality. So I think people need to understand that it is a program designed to meet you where you are. It's a program designed to help you address the hurdles and barriers that you have in your personal life. And so the program is very kind of custom tailored and is designed to really work with you to develop this healthy, long-term, sustainable relationship with food and exercise. And so I think that's what people need to understand about what makes this program so unique and so special. And then I think the other thing too is that people need to, I think, when they join the program, kind of fully embrace the program. So if you're in the program, give it everything. Enjoy the community. Do the best you can to take advantage of the coaching. I again, I come back to some of your words earlier that really attracted me to the program. When you have a problem, run towards the program, run towards your coach, not away.
Yeah.
Let's address that let's really address that. So my encouragement to people that do join the program is to embrace the community, embrace the coaching, um, set your expectations, avoid perfectionism, and really just enjoy every amazing thing that there is to take advantage of to help you establish a healthy relationship with food, healthy relationship with exercise, and this long-term sustainable plan. It's going to set you up for an entire lifetime of health.
Beautiful. Right. I love that you share that because I never know what resonates with people when I talk because, I've have
Yeah,
thousands and thousands of hours of me talking online on my podcast and other
sure.
people's show. But sometimes it's like, you said this one thing. I was like, what did I say? And then they tell me, I was like, oh yeah, I remember saying that
Yeah,
whatever amount of podcasts ago. But it's true, right? Like if you hire someone to help you on this specific journey and then something goes wrong, and usually people will go like, well, let me just kind of isolate myself trying to figure it out on my own and come back
yeah,
when I have my shit together. Like
yep,
we're here because respectfully you don't have your shit together. So we want to help you get your shit together. And so if you
exactly.
go and isolate, you're in the same spot as you were before you started the program. Like that's literally what we're here, is to serve you and help you get out of it.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree, and that's such a great part of the program. But that's definitely an encouragement to people, is to embrace all of the many things that are available through the program and fully embrace it and jump into it. And when those challenges and hurdles come, and they will,
Yeah.
run towards the program, run towards the community, so we can help each other, and certainly the coaches can help you directly as well.
Yeah, and I think you did a great job with that. You're very active in the community. People love you. They
I
love
try to
seeing your
be.
posts. You're inspiring a lot of people because some people are like, I'm at home, I'm struggling with nutrition. And you're like, I've been to like 5 different countries in the past 2 weeks. And I'm like, here's my meal plan. Here's my food. Here's my workouts.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome to hear. I mean, I love nutrition. I love helping people. I love being a part of the community. So, that's a pleasure of being on the journey with other people is, um, sometimes we need help, and so sometimes the community is a huge help to me when I'm struggling, and other times I'm in a position where I can give to other people, and so
Yeah.
it's that give and take of any healthy community, and so it's a pleasure to have that, especially for me and probably many others that are a bit isolated from a plant-based perspective, where I
Yeah.
don't have that plant-based community at home. So I love seeing how people tackle the holidays, how people tackle family gatherings and other things, and so I just constantly learn from the community that we're involved in, and so it's such a pleasure and a privilege to be a part of the community. And yeah, and it's a pleasure to help people along the journey too. So I'm not as active as I wish I could be. I wish I could join every call and always kind of post, but I certainly do get involved as much as I can.
Yeah, no, again, you're doing a great job. And just for the people listening, it's not mandatory, it's just if you want to, but we always appreciate when members post because it really helps everyone out.
Yeah,
One last question for you. Are you going to be at the NHA conference? Because it is in Cleveland, Ohio in
it
in June.
it is okay. So great question. So when you posted that, I was actually very surprised that it was in Cleveland. It's literally like in my backyard. It's like 10 miles from me. So um, the tickets are sold out,
Yeah.
but I reached out to them and just said, hey, I'm a nutrition scientist in Cleveland. If you need someone to volunteer, if you're interested in people presenting research, that kind of thing, let me know. I would love to be there. So I'm hoping to be there somehow or some way. But if
Yeah.
I know Dr. Lori, other people are coming. I would love to get together. So we can definitely
I was
find
going
a
to
way to
say,
get
let's do a
together,
dinner.
and I love to cook. So there are not many plant-based places in Cleveland, and I would be, an honor to host a nice plant-based meal at my home as well. So everyone would be welcome.
Oh, beautiful. I was going to say, let's have a dinner because Ivy and I are going to be in town and yeah,
Yeah,
a few
let's
people.
let's let's do it. So yeah, we can chat offline, but it would be a pleasure.
Oh, beautiful. Cool. I'm happy we'll get to meet in person. Like that's the thing.
Me
I
too.
love being online because we get to help people from all over the world.
Yeah,
But also like I love to meet members in person because I understand that, like you mentioned earlier, sometimes you are the only person in your community and your family that is plant-based. And it is
yeah,
like I remember when I first transitioned, I transitioned when all my friends were bodybuilders. So I was the
yeah,
only vegan. I didn't know any other vegan and
yeah.
managed to build my life around it now.
Sure.
And so obviously I know a bunch of people that are plant-based now, but it's always great to connect with members in person. It's always fun to get a
Oh yeah,
workout in, eat some food. So
yeah.
yeah, we'll definitely do that once I'm in town.
Cannot wait. When I saw that was in Cleveland, I was surprised and thrilled at the same time. So yeah, so many awesome people from the plant-based community will be here. So I will do whatever I can to physically be at the conference. But yeah, let's definitely also try to meet in person.
Cool. Because I'm gonna work out every day that I'm there. So gotta get a
Perfect.
workout in anyways.
Love it.
Beautiful. Well, Brendan, man, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for being vulnerable and authentic and sharing your story. I know
Absolutely.
that it resonated with people. That's the beautiful thing about recording a podcast or doing a video is there's, again, not to put pressure, thousands of people listening
Yeah.
and someone's going to connect with it at one point or connect with one part of the story and it's going to help them. And at the end of the day, we need to hear a
Exciting.
message over and over again until just that one thing clicks. And then once
Yeah.
it clicks, it's game over. You're heading in a completely different trajectory with your life. So I know that you connected with some people. So man, massive thank you for jumping on.
Happy to do it. Vulnerability can be hard, but if it helps one person, it's more than worth it. So hopefully those words will help someone. And yeah, thank you for the program and honored to be a part of it. So thanks for having me.
Of course. And so, yeah, we'll have you on for when you're done your transformation. So there's like a mid
Can't
transformation
wait.
update. So excited to have you back on.
Cannot wait. Thank you so much.